What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Ask an Angler podcast. It's a little disappointing that we haven't had as many questions asked of the podcast as of late. However, I've got some topics to talk about, and if you do have a question that you'd like addressed on the podcast or asked, or answered rather, then please leave it in the comments below. We're going to talk a little bit today about the confusion over choosing a fly line. Now, if you go to a fly shop or you look online, there are probably, a couple hundred variations and varieties of fly line that you could probably choose from, and it can get daunting for new anglers. So we're going to break it down into a couple simple things here. First off, there's no one best fly line for anything. I'm sorry, there's some great lines, but there's no best one that will do everything and anything. That being said, I will carry a variety of different lines and things other than the fly line themselves affect which fly line to use. There are different types of leaders, like a poly leader will swing and sink better than, obviously, a monofilament. And monofilament will cast larger bugs better than fluorocarbon. So, depending on what you're fishing will also vary, too. So, I like to think of lines simply as floating, sinking line, sink tip and or full sink, and an intermediate line. So if depending on the water depth I'm fishing, that itself will vary what type of line I buy. If I typically fish in less than 3 foot of water, then I'm fishing a floating line at all times almost. If I'm fishing anywhere from this is personally myself, 3 foot to 5 foot, then I can get away with an intermediate and or a full sink or sink tip, or I can use a floating line with a poly leader, a long poly leader, and longer tippet. It also depends on what kind of flies you're going to fish, but there are options here. Anything deeper than that, I am a full sink line. I might even add sink tip to it. Some T14 can go a long way. No pun intended. And then if it's even deeper than that, then you probably want to. If you're deeper than 15 foot, I'm usually picking up a spin rod or a casting rod, and or moving to a different location. So, as far as your different lines and things go, those are how I break down by choosing lines specifically. Now you also have different types of tapers. Now, an aggressive taper will probably throw a bigger streamer or a bigger bug easier, but they're less delicate. So you have to choose what type of fish you're fishing for. Are they spooky fish, skittish fish, or does the species itself require you to fish big, hefty flies? So that's going to depend, whether you choose something like a wolf line that will, the triangle taper to really punch out big streamers, or to load your rod really efficiently, or do you need delicacy and you want a little slightly more delicate delivery? That'll also be something to take into consideration. Like I said, it's an easy, okay? And there's so much variation that it can be daunting to choose a line. But if you're a trout angler, if you have a floating line, weight forward floating line, or a double taper floating line, and you have an intermediate sink tip line, you can probably fish 90% of trout water, moving trout water. If you fish any deeper, you may want to switch out your intermediate or sink tip line with some, like a full sink tip, or full sink line rather, or use your intermediate and use some sink tip, like a 5 foot section of T14. It'll all depend. Or, maybe your intermediate line, you want to put some poly leaders on there to really get down and swing. It'll all depend, but don't overcomplicate fly lines. I've caught so many fish on a line I shouldn't have been using. The fish don't care. They only care about your presentation, that you're putting the fly to them. Because realistically, if you're nymphing, and a fish is in its feeding lane, and a fly goes by and they're on it. Doesn't matter if you're using a floating line with extra leader and or tippet, or if you're using a sinking line and you're swinging it through. They'll eat it. If you're fishing a streamer and you're fishing a big streamer, you're looking for players anyway. So if you're fishing a floating line, it'll be tough, and you've got split shot and all this other ugly stuff on there, but the streamer goes by and the fish is playing, you're gonna get a strike. So don't overcomplicate fly lines, folks. Okay, make sure that you're really looking to more so use a fly line that will get the fly in front of the fish. All of this is super detailed, very straightforward and bluntly in my book, Beyond the Cane. Link will be in the description, as well as all of the gear that I suggest you look into purchasing if you want to support the channel. So please, again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, smash the notification bell, and catch you guys on the flip side. Tight lines, and we're out.